Okay, so what I want to do is talk about putting a long-term structure in place to get results. Again, to going back to the kind of principles that I kind of talk about, consistency, sustainability, that a lot of people view their efforts and approaches as these short-term things. They're looking for immediate results on the scales. They're kind of trying these extreme methods. And when I say extreme methods, it's just like very large calorie deficits starting off on a diet, which are completely unsustainable in the long run, both physiologically and psychologically. So to understand all this is like how fat burning works. Okay, so the big thing is we would often look at foods as being good for us or bad for us, healthy or unhealthy, or that kind of thing. But anytime we eat, whether it's a chocolate bar, whether it's broccoli, whether it's boiled chicken, whatever, it doesn't matter. Is your body is going to have to make use of the calories and nutrients in that. So essentially you go into storage mode. Okay, so anytime you eat, your body is going to start to storing things. Okay, and part of the things that it's going to store is fat. So basically the way we look at it is that anytime you eat, you stop burning fat and you start storing it. Anytime you eat, no matter what you're eating, okay? So the whole concept of, I've eaten a chocolate bar, so I've ruined my diet. So no, if you've eaten anything, you've ruined your diet in the short term because you're in storage mode. You're in a net surplus, okay? However, once you've digested that food and utilized what your body can from that food, is you're now in burning mode, okay? You're in net burning, okay? And it's this flux going up and down, up and down. Every time you eat, you go into surplus. Every time you've digested that food, you go into a deficit. And that's essentially how your body works. It's the net result of how much surplus you've been in over the course of a day versus how much of a deficit you've been over the course of a day that will really dictate your results, whether you end up losing weight, whether you end up maintaining, when you end up storing. But this doesn't even have to be a 24-hour period. This could be week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, or day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. It's not just one set period. And to understand this makes staying consistent much, much easier. So to understand, when we're in a surplus versus when we're in a deficit and stuff like that, easiest way to look at it, again, to remind you, 3,500 calories, 1 pound of fat, that's how much energy it takes to get rid of that pound of fat. 3,500 calories is what's in that pound of fat. So if Mary has a maintenance level, she maintains her weight at 2,000 calories, so basically she burns off 2,000 calories every day. In order for her to gain 1 pound of fat, she'd have to eat 3,500 calories. So that means in one day, to gain 1 pound of fat, she'd have to eat 5,500 calories. Now, that's quite difficult to do. And anytime I explain this to people, I often get a comment that, John, you make it sound like it's really hard to gain weight. But that's the short-term kind of side of things that we're looking at. When we look at it in the long-term picture, is if you ate an extra 100 calories a day, or you burnt 100 calories less a day, over the course of a year, that's a 10-pound gain, or vice versa. It could be a 10-pound loss if you consumed 100 calories less a day. Now, if you have any sort of awareness of calories in food, 100 calories is insignificant. But what's even less insignificant or more insignificant is 50 calories a day. That is completely unnoticeable if it comes to being a slightly more sedentary, having a little bit extra to eat. Could be a 5-pound gain in a year. And often people come to us at SF Fitness and they sort of, the weight's just been creeping on. And you can see exactly how it can creep on with just 50 calories extra a day. Over the course of a year, that's a 5-pound gain. So the big thing is to, rather than let this happen by accident, is to have the awareness and ability to change it. So the way to look at it is in what I call a bird's eye view, or we're zooming out. So we're not looking at the individual food or the individual meal. We're looking at the 7 days in a week. So if Mary is at 2,000 calories to maintain, in a week over 7 days, that's 14,000 calories to maintain. So if she eats more than 14,000, she's in a surplus over the course of the week. If she eats less than 14,000, she's in a deficit. And this is where the average weekly weight really plays into it, because you're seeing what that average is doing from every single day, because you're not eating the exact same every single day. So it's the adding up day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in terms of how many calories you've eaten those. Are you in a net surplus? Are you in a net deficit? So let's say Mary, she wants to go on a diet. So she starts, right, I'm going to eat less. And let's say she tracks calories. I'm going to eat 1,500 calories a day. But that's all she focuses on. And she goes fine through Monday to Thursday. But she's trying to really be good as well. So what a lot of people do is they'll go on this kind of reduced intake, but they'll also then give up what they perceive as fattening foods or bad foods like chocolate and crisps and so on. Friday comes and it's someone's birthday in the office. There's cake there. And she tries to resist it, but she can't. She ends up having a slice of cake. That then plays on her in terms of, I've just ruined my diet. I've just broken my diet. I was trying to be good and it didn't work. And she gets pissed off and she's a little bit more on Friday. Saturday and Sunday comes and she's like, what's the point? I've ruined my diet. I'll start again on Monday. So she has takeaways, alcohol, blah, blah, blah. And she eats 3,500 calories on both of those days. Over the course of the week, she's eaten 15,000 calories. So that's a 52,000 calorie surplus in a year, which is the equivalent of a 15-pound gain in a year. But if we look at it, she's dieted 4 out of every 7 days. So in her point of view, she's like, I just can't lose weight. I'm dieting, I'm always on a diet. But because there's no awareness or structure to it, she's dieting on those 4 days and doesn't realize that Friday didn't ruin her efforts. It was her story about Friday. It was her beliefs about Friday that caused her to overeat on Saturday and Sunday that ruined her efforts. And really important to understand this, because when you do, you're empowering yourself to make this a far more sustainable, consistent approach. So what happens if you have a bad day? Let's say Mary ate 3,000 calories in a day. But then she understands the long-term approach and knows that she's actually planned for those 3,000 calories. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, she only eats 1,000 calories. Thursday, she gives herself a little bit of a break, eats 2,000 calories or whatever, 2,500 on another 2 days, and as I said, she eats 3,000 calories in one day. That's 13,000 calories in a week, or a 15-pound loss in a year. But she's only dieted 3 out of every 7 days. So can you imagine how different this would feel? It's like, I'm losing weight, but I'm only I'm only in a deficit 3 out of every 7 days. So a deficit is a challenge to your body. You're essentially, you're giving it less energy than it was. You're forcing it to eat into its own tissue. As a mentor of mine calls it, you're forcing your body to cannibalize itself in order to lose weight. It's eating into the fat tissue. It's eating into muscle tissue. So your body doesn't like to do that. But if you're only dieting 3 out of every 7 days, if you're only in a deficit every 3 out of every 7 days, your body's going to enjoy that a hell of a lot more than trying to be in a deficit 4, 5, 6 days a week, or even longer, as what a lot of people believe they need to do. So let's kind of zoom out a little bit more. What if you have a bad week? So if Mary eats 16,000 calories in 1 week, she's now in a 2,000 calorie surplus. Has she ruined her efforts? Well, it depends on what she's doing on the weeks around that. So let's say, she has 1 week over, in a period of 6 where she eats 16,000, but she has 2 weeks where she only eats 11,000. She has a week where she eats at maintenance of 14,000 and 2 weeks where she eats at 10,000. So she has a 3.5 pound loss in 6 weeks, but she's only dieted 4 out of 6 weeks. She's had the freedom to structure her weeks and her days to have higher calorie, lower calorie, and therefore to not feel like she's constantly trying to diet, that she's always on this diet, that she's always restricting, that she can't have, because she allows herself this freedom of having higher calorie days and weeks. So the big thing what I want to get across is that no matter what happens, that you haven't ruined your diet. And just to kind of hammer this home is just, let's say Mary eats 1,500 calories 6 days a week. She's eaten 9,000. So she's in a 5,000 calorie deficit so far. For the week, she's got 1 day left. In order to get to maintenance and to, essentially ruin her diet, she'd have to eat 5,000 calories in 1 day. But that's just even to get to maintenance, not even to gain any weight in the week. In order to gain weight, she'd have to eat 8,500 calories to gain a pound of fat. That's a considerable chunk of calories to consume in 1 day to properly ruin your diet. So sure, look, you can slow your results by having higher calorie days and higher calorie meals and stuff like that, but it's very hard to ruin them in 1 day or in one meal. And that's what I really want to get across to you, that no matter what happens is that you can always just continue on. And that you haven't ruined your diet just because you had some biscuits, just because you forgot to track 1 day, or just because you went out or whatever like that. And more importantly is that once you understand this, is that you can then actually put a bit of structure on your week, on your meals, to get way more consistency in it. Now, as I said, you can slow your results, and you might only lose a pound versus a pound and a half in 1 week because you had a higher calorie day and you went out or whatever like that. But by allowing yourself to have those days, you probably make yourself far more consistent over the course of 6 weeks, 12-week period. And so when it comes to long-term results, if you're losing a pound a week, but you're losing consistently over 12 weeks, you're losing 12 pounds. If you're trying to really restrict yourself and get the fastest results possible, and losing a pound and a half, 2 pounds over week 1, week 2, week 3, but then you end up the deficit becoming far too much for you to handle psychologically and physiologically, and you give up on your diet. So that's what I'm kind of talking about, the consistency, that so slow and steady can be actually equate to a much longer, much greater amount of weight loss over time. So to structure your diet, and what I want you to take home from this is, have a look at your day, and in terms of how easy is it to you to eat lower calorie meals at certain times. So can you eat a lower calorie breakfast, or can you eat a lower calorie lunch to allow yourself to have a snack in the evening time, or a bigger dinner to fill you up more? Do you know what I mean? What parts of the day do you get hungry the most at? So again, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've met people who get hungry at like lunchtime. They're starving, but then I see what they're eating for breakfast or whatever, and it's insignificant. It doesn't work for them. But other people, is like, my wife is one of them. So when she can eat quite low calorie at breakfast, but she likes to have a higher calorie dinner. So she basically structures her day to look forward to dinner time, essentially. And it's similar with your week. Structure your week with lower calorie days and higher calorie days. So, if you want to have a takeaway, if you want to have a bottle of wine or whatever it is plan ahead and know that, right, I'm going to offset this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is. I'm going to create a bigger calorie deficit on those days. And then on a Saturday, or I'm going to have, my takeaway, or a Sunday, I'm going to go out for brunch, whatever it is, that you're able to structure that week to make your progress far more consistent, because you're essentially being kinder to your body. You're not forcing it into this long-term extreme deficit. You're having deficit days and surplus days, but the overall net result, by looking at your average weight, is a deficit. And that's where you're going to end up changing your body shape, burning more fat and things like that. So let me know if you have any questions on this, but really do have that awareness of your diet. Have it really important to have an awareness of, well, how many calories am I eating in meals? And to tweak them and adjust them to suit your lifestyle far more than just this kind of generic, we'll just give up these kind of foods and try and restrict as much as possible. And if you can't do that, your diet's over, you've ruined it. As I said, very difficult to ruin your diet. Much easier to have this structure on a week in terms of the sustainability and the long-term side of things. So as I said, any questions, let me know.